Hi, I'm Nicholas Cardella, and while at Liggett, I played football and I was involved in Brendan Jones' esports teams due to my love for video games. Journalism has always been an interest of mine ever since I was watching NBA free agency one summer, and the reporter's response to a question was, "I don't know yet, and I want to know." Business is also another interest of mine due to some of my family members' careers. This is how I land on this topic with the question, how does media reporting and public perception of video games affect the esports industry? As part of this project, I've also created a website that goes along with all this information.
So what are esports? The term esports refers to the competitive play of video games by professional players, and the industry consists of sponsorships, advertising, media rights, game publisher fees, and tickets and merchandise. Other entities that can measure the scale of the esports industry are components like viewership data and prize pools for tournaments. These tournaments tend to take place at major traditional sports stadiums, such as League of Legends selling out the Staples Center or Oracle Arena. The viewership for esports has been on the rise over the past few years. Over the past 5 years, it has almost doubled, going from 236 million viewers to 443 million viewers, and is projected to hit 586 million by the end of 2020. The total revenue of the industry has been growing at a very fast rate. In the last 5 years, it has grown from $325 million to $1.1 billion. This chart shows future projections, which projects the industry to grow by $400 million in 2020 alone. Collegiate esports are also starting to take off. Many schools, such as Michigan State, Butler, UC Irvine, and more, have created programs. In my conversation with Evan Olsum, he noted that although this is a big achievement for the industry, many times it is not taken seriously and is similar to club sports at major universities, though he does believe in the next 10 years it'll be more prevalent everywhere. How does the media function behind the scenes? The media controls a lot of public perception on many things. The media has three main purposes: to provide news, to entertain, and to educate. Many people do not realize how much the media helps shape our opinion on many current events, popular topics, successful industries, and more, since we rely on the media to inform us by giving us news on things we should know about and be aware of on a daily basis. This means they can manipulate public opinion for their own agenda. An example of this is advertisements. We buy what we see our favorite celebrities promoting. TV news differs from other platforms, such as newspapers or magazines, in the type of story that's reported. Typically, stories on TV are short in length but contain appealing visuals. They are often action stories that add excitement to the news, providing drama and emotion without in-depth details on complicated topics. The media is controlled by a combination made up of the owners, editors, and journalists. The owners appoint editors to edit articles journalists write. The editors become the voice of the owners and select what stories to publish. Journalists are free to write whatever they want as long as the editors and owners agree to publish it. Today, journalists react more than they initiate. Much of the news reported comes straight from press releases and handed to journalists, not requiring them to search for a story. What is the public perception of esports? Generally, it tends to be pretty negative. A lot of this is on media companies for only reporting when there's something bad to report. Gun supporters and organizations like the NRA try to link video games to mass shootings, which the media then jumps on. However, this narrative is false, as there have been many studies that have resulted in no link between these things. Even studies linking aggression to video games remains controversial and has never been affirmed by a court. This is how video games can make its way into the political conversation. Recently, President Trump and former Vice President Biden were heard bashing video games. Politicians target video games because the vote that backs them is not as vocal or as big as the vote that backs guns. Video games are often portrayed as if they are some fantasy world with no hint of reality involved whatsoever. Many people do not understand how people could possibly fall in love with someone while playing video games, or why someone would pay real money for virtual items, and more recently, why intelligence agencies would look for terrorists in video games. These headlines downplay the significance of video games as communication platforms and the real-world effects they have. There have been many studies that show video games have positive impacts on real-world behavior, such as better surgeons, saving for the future, and exercising. In my conversation with John George, he said that a lot of the public perception is due to the fact that esports are still in the phase where people don't understand what they are, so the media has to explain what esports are during every report. He believes the best way to solve this problem are to get esports on TV more and to simplify things. Aside from confusion, stereotypes are also a problem within the industry. When people tend to think of gamers, they think of out of shape, living in their parents' basement, unable to get a real job, and more. These stereotypes are proving to be more wrong in the current age of gaming since many players are in their teens to mid-20s and are in good shape. A major goal within the industry is to stop these stereotypes and to get esports to be seen in a better light. Can the esports industry compare to other industries like the MLS or XFL? Well, the esports industry even surpasses the MLS in certain metrics. In terms of total revenue, the MLS brought in $644 million in 2017 compared to esports which brought in $655 million the same year. When looking at viewership, it's easiest to compare single events. For the MLS, that would be the MLS Cup, which brought in 803,000 viewers, and for esports, it's the League of Legends World Championship, which had an average of 1 million viewers and a peak of 3.9 million. The XFL, before it suspended operations due to COVID-19, was looked at as a model. The XFL was able to bring in an average of 3.1 million viewers for their Week 1 games, which decreased to 2.1 million in Week 2 and 1.6 million in Week 3. Looking at esports on TV, the NBA 2K Players Tournament that aired on ESPN2 had an average audience of more than 350,000, and the virtual NASCAR races that have brought in 903,000 and 1.3 million viewers. Comparing TV viewership, the XFL had higher numbers. While the XFL had more viewers, and there's no way around that point, it does show that the numbers can rise and esports has a lot of room to grow on TV and in the eyes of the mainstream media. The XFL had the backing of the media companies, and it was not something thrown together in the absence of programming to air like esports events are right now. With some planning and support, esports have a lot of room to grow on TV.
All this information builds together to form my product, which is the website I previously mentioned. I used Wix to build it, and from there, I designed it as a news source for the industry side of esports. I began writing articles about everything in this presentation and also about Brennan Jones's efforts to get Liggett into the high school esports league. I have designed the website so it is fairly easy to navigate. On the homepage, there is a section of articles I've deemed as featured and a section with the newest articles. At the top, there's a navigation menu. By clicking on the Articles tab, you'll be able to scroll through all the articles I've written. I've written articles on the majority of the information in this presentation. You can also narrow down the articles into categories. Currently, there are only two: Liggett Esports and the industry. Liggett Esports will be all about the articles pertaining to esports at Liggett, which would include tournaments held, Jones's path to getting Liggett involved in esports, and Liggett's involvement in the high school esports league, including updates on the teams participating. As you can see in articles like this one, I've been summarizing recent games for the teams, similarly to how the Detroit Free Press would summarize Tigers or Pistons games. The industry section will feature all articles about the esports industry as a whole, with each article looking at a specific aspect. I've written about industry statistics, fan awards, public perception, and COVID-19's effect on esports. There's also an upcoming events tab, but that is currently pretty empty. There were events scheduled such as the Intel Open, Olympic Run-Up event, Overwatch League playoffs, and more, but they have since been postponed or canceled due to COVID-19. Thank you for watching my presentation. I hope I was able to inform you about the esports industry and maybe even change how you view video games going forward.